Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Arise Lunch and Learn. I'm Maggie Buckley. I'm a member of Arise, and I'm part of this organization primarily because my daughter, Harley, has a disability. And I've learned an awful lot from the work I've done with Arise, from the people who run this organization. It's been a great experience. So we're so glad you're joining us today. And today we have Max Donatelli with us, who's going to talk to us about shared decision making. Max is a very well-known and trusted advocate and supporter of people with disabilities and their families. He's maybe best known as Craig's dad, because he and his wife Joyce have done a tremendous and have worked tirelessly to support Craig and the men that Craig lives with in self-direction. So I'm sure in this role, he has really learned a lot about shared decision making, and he's going to be able to share a lot of that with us. So we're so glad you're here to hear this. Max will be giving us background and explaining how it works, and we'll have time at the end of this presentation to answer questions. But if you have a question during the presentation, please put it in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll try to get to you if we can. So, Max, welcome. And can you tell us what shared decision making is?
Okay, well, I want to clarify too that it's supported decision making is what we're going to focus on today, and supported decision making is something that family members, parents particularly, might want to consider for their son or daughter that has developmental disabilities or may have some kind of a mental health challenge that they may need help with making decisions. And and that's really what supported decision making was started for. And I'll just give a little bit of background on myself. I'm a dad. My wife Joyce and I have two children. Connie, who's they're both Craig and Connie are both adults. Connie is 42. Craig is going to be 36. And Craig has developmental disabilities. He has he has Down syndrome, and he is living in a shared living situation through Aspire. It's a self-directed living situation that we were able to get through the help of Aspire, as well as with OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. And we were able to have him live in a home that's semi-independent. And certainly can talk about that at another time, but maybe even later if there's questions about that. But we do have legal guardianship for Craig. We got that when he was 18 years old. However, we always have had Craig want to know what his decisions were, and for him to become an advocate. And we had that in his individual education plan from the time he was about 8 years old, when we were going through his educational journey. And so we wanted to really know what Craig wants, and not be making all the decisions for him, and particularly even for him to want to be able to move out of the family home with one of his, as he called it, his honorary brother. David Rosenhart. Those were decisions, things that he really wanted. And we did go through person-centered planning. And, so we did, we really wanted Craig to be able to be making his own decisions. Now, what supported decision-making, and it started here in New York State. It's been around for a while, but it started in New York State back in 2016. And they do have a pretty extensive website. And, and the website is, is And maybe somebody, could put that in the chat, but it's, again, sdmny.org. And there's a lot of information that's on there. And what it is actually an alternative to 17A guardianship, which is legal guardianship of somebody who may have difficulties with being able to make their own decisions, particularly decisions that, could involve some kind of financial commitments and, credit cards, those kind of things. And, and so this organization was formed back in 2016 as a consortium of Hunter College and CUNY of the New York Alliance for and the New York Alliance for Inclusion and Innovation, and also the New York Council on Disabilities as well. They got a grant through them, and so they formed this organization. They initially had it as a 5-year grant. That did get extended, and there's a pilot now that Office of People with Developmental Disabilities is funding to really continue to increase this opportunity for people with developmental disabilities to be able to get support with making decisions. And essentially, kind of give you what they're looking to do is they really want to be able to help people with intellectual developmental disabilities, how to make decisions that are good. And, and they're really, it's a nice opportunity where they actually have trained facilitators that, that provide that kind of support. And, and I've gone to a couple of their meetings, and where they've had an opportunity to talk with the as they call them, decision makers, DMs, decision makers, and they really the decision makers need to be working with people that they trust, people that parents, siblings, trusted friends, somebody that's going to really be able to help them to make those kinds of decisions. And what they do is they have an application process that's right on the website, and people do apply. They had one of the orientation sessions last Thursday that I had an opportunity to be on, and they had a couple of the family members that wanted their loved one to be able to go through this process. It's about a 6 to 9 month process, and that person enrolls in it. They do it voluntarily. They can go for as long as they want. If they decide to drop out, there's that's fine. It's really up to them. They really want the person that has the disability to be able to make their own decisions. And what they try to do is the facilitators do meet with them individually, and and they can do it either remotely or hopefully, and they do have them in each one of the regions. With a self-direction, we have what they call a support broker, and our support broker, who is now working with all 6 of the young men that are living there in Craig's house, she got trained as a facilitator for supported decision making. So this is, again, it is an alternative to 17A guardianship, legal guardianship. And
I ask you if this is legally binding. I mean, we all know we've been steered towards legal guardianship, many of us as parents, and we know that it's a serious process, legally binding. Does this have any of the same legal stipulations?
It is at this point they anticipate, because that question was asked, and it is not yet a legally binding. It is a signed contract. It is at this point, because of some of the it getting tied up with the legislature, it is not officially seen as a legally binding document at this point, but they do plan to have it become that. And so it is in process at this point. That's a real good question, Maggie, because that's definitely one of the questions that I had. And actually, our attorney, when we met with her recently about some other issues, she was asking some of the same things. So I shared some of the information that we had on it because she's involved in doing the legal guardianship. And this is, really an alternative to the 17A guardianship, going through surrogates court, which is what we did with Craig back when he was 18 years old. So, so it is an alternative. Now I will say too that, that it is, from what I've been able to see so far and what I've read, is that it is a good alternative, potentially even for those that that may already have some kind of a guardianship in place, because it is something where they really do try to empower the person with the disability how to be able to make better decisions. And so it is something that is, now I don't know, I didn't even ask that question, but I mean, like, for example, if we wanted Craig to get involved in this process, because we already have this legal guardianship, that is more encompassing, because I mean, essentially, as legal guardians, Craig really can't make a legally binding agreement unless Joyce and or I are directly involved in that. So this is something that, again, is relatively new, and and how this is going to go as it develops. And again, it's still in a pilot phase with OPWDD at this point in time, and and so it is something to consider for families. And I just did see in the chat, it just happened to catch my eye, that a question of whether or not to drop the 17A guardianship. And that would probably be a lawyer question, and and to ask whoever did your 17A guardianship, to see if that's something that could be undone, or whatever they call it, because it'd probably have to go through the surrogate court. That's what I would imagine. But this is something that I was really impressed with. Sorry, I was really impressed with the person that that was meeting Thursday evening with the decision makers and with their family members, their trusted people, that they really did ask, I thought, very good questions. They gave a nice orientation of what what supported decision making was, and just a second. And they did, really gave a nice picture of that they really want them to be able to make the decisions, that they do have these trained facilitators that essentially meet with them pretty much on a weekly basis, and they really try to help them to be able to learn how to make better decisions for themselves. And again, they may be decisions too where they may be making some mistakes, that they are, like any of us, going into life, that, there's going to be, risks that people are taking without, whatever kinds of, things that they may be involved in. And so, but they do really want to make sure that somebody is working with, a trusted friend, a trusted family member. And, so there is, because the supported decision making is that it's supported, that there needs to be somebody there supporting them, and that they're not going to be making these decisions all on their own. and that they really want to be able to do it in conjunction with a, with a person that they're support, that can really support them, that really does care about them, looks, for their interest, outs for their interests. So their perspective, with the shared decision making in New York, everyone has the right to make decisions, and that's really what one of the hallmarks of what they really, try to encourage. We believe that every person has the right to make their own decisions and to have those decisions legally recognized as reflected in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Developmental Disabilities, and which they see it really as a human right. So, I think, again, there certainly are varying capacities of people who have various kinds of developmental disabilities, some that may not be able to make their own decisions, some that are, have, profound intellectual disabilities, those that, really have some, some challenges, intellectually to be able to make decisions, and they may are going to need to have, legal guardians, and hopefully have legal guardians that are going to be able to help them, as as they, as they grow. But this is ones for those that, really, potentially can make their own decisions, and with help, with support from family members, with trusted, other trusted adults. And so that this organization really has a lot of information on this. They do have videos on there also of people that have gone through the process. The decision makers themselves are have gone. They interview them, and they have them on videos that are right on the website. And they have all the information. They do have general information sessions that they hold regularly. They have one that's coming up in May. So if somebody's interested in wanting to find out more about supported decision making, just go right on the website, and it has all that information. You can just sign up. It's real easy. I signed up for one of the things for last Thursday, and it was relatively easy to sign it up for it, and then they'll just send you a link, by email, and and you'll have that readily available, and you can, then sign up to, and then, participate in it. And again, it's virtual, and they do have, I think, some very knowledgeable people that have been involved in doing this for quite some time.
Max, it's interesting as you talk about this, I can really see the value in it. And even for people who have guardianship and may need it, legal guardianship, the 17A, I think that seems to me to be like, it's big decision issues, like, medical care and big financial decisions. But all of our lives are comprised of making decisions every day about what might be best in our best interest. And
Mhm.
that's what I think we all struggle with. And as a parent, I struggle with that with my daughter because I want her to be able to make the best decisions. And sometimes we're not sure, and sometimes she's not sure or can't communicate what she wants, but I can see the value in this. There's so many issues that come up frequently about where you're going to live or how you're going to live or who you're going to live with. And is your staff person supporting your best interests? All kinds of things that need to be decided.
Yep, yep, and that's, and certainly those are, those are big issues that, that many times, people do need support, and but I know many parents, and at least parents that I do know, really do try to encourage their son or daughter to be able to make their own decisions. However, this process really does allow for somebody who's really not connected to them, and that can really kind of encourage them to be able to start learning how to make those decisions, more on their own. And and it would be particularly probably more helpful for those that maybe have not had those opportunities to really be making their own decisions. Now, I can't say that this is going to go without conflicts with parents with their loved one, son or daughter, because the son or daughter may say, "But geez, I was told that I can do this on my own," or that I don't have to check with you on this, or those kind of things, which potentially could happen down the road. And because somebody who all of a sudden feels that they have this kind of newfound freedom, that they're going to want to kind of push the envelope. And so I can definitely see that potentially being an issue down the road, but it's something I think that if families can be reasonable and really there is something that's called the dignity of risk, of allowing certain kind of actions that they may want to take, to let them try it. I mean, you certainly have to do it with care and love in mind, because certain things that I know I would not be happy with our son doing is, like say driving a car. That's something, if somehow we went through this process and we didn't have the 17A guardianship, we would still feel very strongly that, this is something that we do not believe that, it's hard enough on the road when you're, properly prepared and are able to, do all the reading and all the things that you have to do, the skills that you have to learn to drive a car. It's difficult enough as typically to be able to do that, let alone having having an intellectual or developmental disability that could potentially make that problematic. Now, there are people with developmental disabilities that do drive, some that are maybe neurodiverse on the autism spectrum, potentially, that or have various kinds of physical disabilities that have certain kind of accommodations that allow them to drive. So, that's those kind of situations, are different, and taking kind of a person at a time. And hopefully they do have people that are around them to help them to make those kind of decisions as they become 18, 19 years old, and making those kind of decisions.
So I imagine, Max, that there's probably in the training some ways of dealing with disagreement when it arises with families and people who need support.
Yeah, and that would, it's part of the process. Again, the process, it's a three-phase process. I mean, that's the way that it, they have kind of an introductory process, and then what they do is then they go more into really supporting and giving them different examples of things that they can make decisions about. And if they do have disagreements, really being able to encourage them to, to really, if they do want to do something that could potentially become problematic, with a loved one, with their parent, with their uh, person that's trusted person, that to kind of prepare them for it, but and say, yeah, I'd really like to do this, and because I've had discussions about it, this is why I want to do it, and this is why it's important to me. And so those kind of things would be part of that, the process. And then the third phase of it, is really the part that they're really then preparing them to start to make some real decisions for themselves. And again, they do these trainings with the facilitators, that they have, that are that they do this statewide, for all of New York State. And they have in each one of the regions, they're training a certain amount of facilitators that are, in the local areas. So, us now in Western New York, we would be able to have certain facilitators here, and I would, they would be, somebody signs up here, they would then be given a list of the different folks that are trained facilitators here, and then they would be able to, along with their family member, pick somebody that maybe was, closer to them enough, geographically, so that they can meet in person.
Max, so the facilitator is part of the training, but once the training is over, you're on your own, right, with your family or your support person. Do you have a
Yes, yes, and what they'll do is, I mean, they do have, they come up with a signed agreement, that's signed by the decision maker as well as the supported person that, that's going to be, with them as well as the facilitator themselves. So, that is something, at the end of either the 6 months or the 9 months, whatever, or is somewhere in between, it would, they would then they basically essentially graduated, so to speak, from the program. And then it's really up to the trusted person, to work along with, the son or daughter or relative, friend, trusted friend, to be able to then, start to make those decisions. And in the process, in the third phase, they would actually be making some of those decisions and testing some of that stuff out so that it just wouldn't be, you know, uh, just kind of off on their own totally, because they would really start to make some of those, decisions that might be harder decisions while the facilitator was still involved.
So is it basically different from guardianship in that, um, first of all, it seems broader, but with guardianship, it's really clear and it's for really important decisions. And I would assume it's almost irrevocable, right?
Well, and that's, and that I don't know. And the question was asked if whether or not we're going to consider, dropping our 17A guardianship.
Yeah.
And at this point, this is still relatively newer to me. I mean, I've heard about this, I've read about it in the past, and and it was actually not around when Craig, when we needed to get the guardianship for Craig, because making those kind of medical decisions and those kind of things were things that we really felt as caring parents that we wanted to go through the 17A guardianship. And we were encouraged that really was the only alternative we had at that time. So again, that's 35, or not 35, well, 35 minus the 18, when he turned 18 years old. And, at this point, like I said, I really like the process in a lot of ways because it really does help empower the person to
Mm,
make decisions for themselves, and with some coaching along the way. Now, we do feel that both Joyce and I have been coaching Craig in a caring way to be making his own decisions, regardless of the 17A guardianship.
yeah.
But we still do, go with him to medical appointments, uh, generally we want to make sure that we're talking to the medical people. Craig does go in by himself in some of those, and but it's something that is a little concerning at times, because sometimes Craig doesn't necessarily understand exactly what the medical advice that might be coming out of it. So we want to make sure that it's that our involvement is still there,
Sure.
not making those kind of decisions completely on his own.
It's challenging as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no
You
question.
give up control, right? Yeah, and you just want to keep your loved ones safe, right? And so, but
Exactly.
there is something to be said about the dignity, which we all have, which most of us have access to, right? We none of us always make the best decisions for ourselves, right?
Well,
So everybody deserves the opportunity to make a decision.
that's right. That's right. And that's where I think it's really good that they've developed this kind of an alternative, because it really does put a lot of the decision making into the hands of the people that that this is going to affect their lives. I mean, this is Craig is making decisions now, and he has been for quite some time. I mean, Craig does work independently in the community. He works at Explore and More Children's Museum, and we're very proud that he's been able to work competitively now. He worked at Denny's before that for about 9 years, and Explore and More for about the last 3 years. So he makes decisions at work. He makes decisions about things that he wants to buy. He does he does have a bank account, and so there are things that he says he wants to get, and generally he's able to make those decisions, and he can do a lot of those right at the house with the staff or with his life coach. And some of those decisions we're not even directly a part of, because he's an adult, and he's living, like I said, semi-independently.
So, are you enjoy sometimes surprised at the decisions he's learned to make over the years?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we have, and I'd say, he's pretty. I think one of the things that with Craig is, and I think this is, and is, I certainly can't say this with all the young people, or with Down syndrome, for example, but Craig sometimes tends to be a people pleaser, and wants to be able to make kind of tell us what we want to hear about things that he wants
Yeah.
to do. And it's kind of like he tests us out to say, well, I'd like to do this. It kind of, is that okay? And so what we're trying to do with him is, Craig, it's not necessarily something that, it's something you want. That's why, we did mention before, I did mention before that we went through person-centered planning. And, it was a process that we did when Craig was much younger. And it was prior to him moving out of the house. We did it with a person from People Inc., a person by the name of Rick Banner, who, I thought was very helpful, in really focusing in on what Craig really wanted, what's important to Craig. Not that what mom and dad want for Craig, but what Craig wants for Craig. And that was really helpful when we were looking for him to move out of the house, with his honorary brother, as I mentioned, and the other guys that he ended up, meeting and wanting to live together with. So it was, those are things that are decisions that we really wanted him to be making, and not doing it to please us, but to do it something that's going to please him.
That's a good point. And I think lately I've become aware of the fact that with the crisis in caregiving, and with all the changes we're encountering in the system of care, for many of us, especially those of us who are aging parents, we feel pretty panicked at times about what will happen in the future. And I think it's important that we not lose sight of what our loved ones really want and what will make their life feel complete to them. And I think there's a temptation in this time of crisis to overlook that if we're not careful.
Well, and I think that's why I really like this process, because it really does, in a lot of ways, similar to person-centered planning. It really allows them to kind of drive the bus, and start to make their own decisions. And one of the things that I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. I mean, Craig really told us back years ago that he wanted to be a drummer, that was important to him. And so we got him into drum lessons, and he took drum lessons all the way, even when he then moved, and prior to the pandemic, and he was taking regular drum lessons once a week, and because that was really important to him. Craig does not like the Bills. He's not a big Bills fan. I am. Okay. And he would sit and watch games with me and stuff like that. But now when he's at the house, there's most of the guys in the house where he lives, they're big Bills fans, they're Sabres fans, Bandits fans, and Craig's not interested in that. He'd rather either play his drums or go on his iPad and be involved in one of his self-advocacy groups or something like that. It's just things that, there's things that he likes and wants to do that Joyce and I necessarily don't want to do.
So isn't that wonderful that he has options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, he also wants to, he has a personal trainer. He goes to Catalyst Fitness with most of the guys in the house, and they have a personal trainer, and he's really into wanting to, be healthy, and wants to be able to be active, and he really likes Bob at Catalyst Fitness, and he's like really motivated to do really well there because he really enjoys that, and with the other guys, so there's he loves getting out in the community. He really likes a variety of things in the community, and he'll and it's different than what some of the other guys in the house like, which is really nice that we're able to have a life coach there that can help us to provide staff. They don't necessarily always are not going together like they typically would in a group home situation, or an individual residential alternative, as they call them.
So I can see, though this isn't, I don't know how much this is a part of it, but I can see how important this would be, the supported decision making, to implement in a situation like Craig's, where he's living with other people and they have to decide about resources that they have coming into the house, or time that they have, or activities they want to do, and who wants to do what. That seems like a really important piece that doesn't always get considered, I would imagine,
Right.
but so critical to living successfully with other people.
Well, and that's, we really wanted, that for Craig. Craig wanted it, but we wanted him to be able to, be living with, or be, able to be a part of, with people his own age,
Right.
and, living with mom and dad where he was, as much as, we cared for him while he was in the school situation, even when he was at Denny's, worked at Denny's, he just didn't have exposure to and be going out with guys his own age, or young ladies his own age, and that's something that we felt was real important, and particularly as he got older, and again, we're aging parents too, we want him to be able to have his own life, and a life that of doing things that he really wants to do, being able to have people around him who are friends, as well as having and us being able to work together to have good staff that are there at the house, and trusted people there that we have. And again, we work that in conjunction with the organization that we're the Craig's involved with, Aspire of Western New York, and because they're the ones that really help us with the staffing, they do all the background checks with the staff, and they do the supervision of the staff, and we do work with the staff, and we do interview them as well to make sure that they're ones, along with the guys, to make sure that the staff are adults that are going to be good for them for their future. So those are things that are really important, and we do a lot of that work together, with the other family members as well.
If Max, if someone was in a position where they really didn't have a supportive family, or a family that was willing to do this with them, would it still be a possibility for someone to do this?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and that's one I would certainly defer to the folks at SDNY, to answer that. But I would hope so, that they could pick somebody that that they may trust, and it might be somebody that that maybe works with an agency they might be hooked up with, or or somebody that would be willing to step forward to say, yeah, Joe or Susie or whoever it might be, that, yeah, I'd be willing to work with it, and I, work with that person with this particular process. Now, it would have to be somebody that was willing to go into it for the long run. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just somebody that's going to be involved and then they're going to go on to something else. So it would have to be somebody that they would be able to count on. So that, I think, would be one of the considerations, that if, for example, and I've in the work that I've done working in human services, I've worked with a number of young men and women that really kind of look to me to, for different kind of questions of issues for them, for, life kind of issues. But I certainly wouldn't want to say that I would be able to do something like this, particularly if I was a paid staff or if I was a paid administrator. I'd be really leery about doing something like this, for somebody, unless I knew for sure I'd be able to commit to, years, into the future, that I'd be able to help support this particular person with this process. Now, having said that, there may be people that, could benefit to where eventually they could be making their own decisions, and need less and less support from that trusted person. And I do know of situations where I've seen that happen. I worked with, young people with behavioral challenges and emotional issues at Baker. I worked with them in a residential program at Baker, as well as then those in foster care. And I've known people that, they really made very poor decisions. Well, they were in their teens and before. And as they got support along the way, they started making better decisions for themselves with support from, folks, the staff, myself and others, and they were able to start to make some better decisions. And particularly those with, behavioral issues, mental health challenges, we would hope that they would, make those kind of good decisions for themselves. And, so eventually some of them do go on to make their own decisions, and need less and less support from those folks. And particularly if somebody, has and there's been certainly some public kind of situations where people kept on those, very restrictive, 78 guardianships or conservatorships, where it really becomes infringing on a person's freedom, and they become controlled by that person. And, which, is on the other side of that, where somebody's being overprotective or wants to control their money, given the, like the Britney Spears situation, for example, and, so whoever enters into this really has to, hopefully is going into it with, with good faith, and that they really want to be able to support this person making better decisions for themselves, making good decisions that are going to be good lifelong decisions in some cases, for them for the future.
So it sounds like down the road, as this develops, there'll need to be some safeguards in place to make sure that people are in relationship with people who are helping them make decisions that are in their best interest.
Right. And I think, in the long run too, I mean, there's, Joyce and I are, certainly looking out for Craig the best we can, and, helping him make good decisions, but we want to make sure that, as he gets older, that there's going to be other people, his sister, for example, his cousin, other people that are part of his circle of support, that are going to, that are closer to his age, that are going to be there for him as Joyce and I get older, because that's a reality. I mean, I'm shooting for 100. I don't know about you.
Yeah,
you know, I want
sometimes.
I want to be around. I want to be around as long as I can for Craig, but
Yeah.
Con. But on the other hand, we know that's not. Things get in the way, and health issues come up, and as with everybody, and realistically, we want Craig to be making those kind of decisions that are good for him, and that he has people around him besides us that can help him make good decisions, people that he can turn to that are going to, help him make good decisions. So, so that's an important thing that we're wanting him to make some good, good decision making as he gets older, that are going to need less and less support from us, as much as it is that's possible, and that he'll then turn to other people to help him to make those kind of, good decisions for him.
Right. And I think early on, Max, you mentioned that you and Joyce support Greg with love and care. And I think that, love is certainly a part of this process, but it doesn't have to be limited to family, right? We want people who can step up and love a person, and that's possible.
Yes. Yes, and again, that's very important. I mean, that's one of the things that we also encourage, and we have with with Craig having moved out, of our house, now it'll be 11 years in June. We want to make sure that he has a good circle of support,
Mhm.
of people that care about him, that he trusts, not just the paid people that work with him, but also, family members. Some of the family members that are part of that circle of support are closer to our age, as his parents, aunts, uncles, and but he also does have cousin, that's directly involved. He's got a sister that's directly involved, and so we want to make sure that there are people his age that are going to help him with those kind of decisions. The staff are closer to his age right now. His life coach is closer to his age, and so we really feel in a lot of ways it was a good decision for us to have him move when he did, because he's relying less on us than he did when he was living under our roof. And not to say that we don't talk to him every day, because we do, and
I bet.
and we still have a close relationship with him, and he does come home, and and he likes coming home. He's likes being a guest is kind of what he comes home, but he wants to go back, which is really good, because we feel that that's that we've made some good decisions, helped him to make some good decisions about the move, because he really wants to go back. He wants to be with his friends. And to see when Craig comes back after he's been gone a couple of days, I mean, it is so nice to get, the guys, they hug and, oh, where you, glad to have you back. And, it's very, very nice to see that. They can't say they always get along, because they don't, but they're like brothers, and but it's really nice to see that there's that it's welcoming, that it's a nice atmosphere at the house. I mean, we've worked the house because of we're the backup for when their staff aren't able to come in for different reasons, and that is something that we're looking for the future, how that's going to play out in the future. So we are concerned about that. I'm involved in a number of statewide organizations that are, in committees that are looking at that particular issue down the road. But, but we really wanted him to, as much as possible, learn to live, in a semi-independent living situation. And where he lives, it is semi-independent. I mean, they don't have staff all the time there. They don't have staff at night. We have cameras in the common areas. And, so the guys are making good decisions, getting themselves up in the morning for their, getting their breakfast ready, making sure they got their lunches. And sometimes the guys end up leaving on paratransit before before the staff even come in, because there's no staff during the nighttime hours. So it is kind of a unique situation where there are decisions that the guys are having to make, and we were very nervous not having 24/7. When we first opened the house, we had 24/7 staffing. But the guys have learned to make some pretty darn good decisions, and and living, in a situation where they're all under one roof, and but certainly we appreciate being able to have staff that are there, helping them with decisions during the day, getting them out in the community, because none of them drive. We have a nice van that they got, give a shout out to West Her, who, helped us with the donation. Scott Beeler and which was real helpful a couple of years ago. And, so, we've been really pleased with the way that the setup is at this point. We still have our challenges, but by and large, we're glad that we helped them to make that decision to move out of mom and dad's home.
Well, it sounds like this house this home, I should say, is a testament to shared and supportive decision making.
Yes, yes, yeah. In a lot of ways, it really is
Yeah.
because all of us, as family members, as caring family members, really, committed to this process and have, continued to work together to make it work. And again, shout out to, Aspire of Western New York, who's been very, supportive along the way. They do, they are do own the home, and the guys do pay rent to them, and we do have a lease arrangement. And so again, that's something that we help the guys understand exactly what that lease entails, and that they have to live up to certain standards, keeping the place clean and free of bed bugs and those kind of things in the home, and so that they're you know and cleanliness is certainly a big thing, keeping their rooms in pretty good shape, and those kind of things, because they're living, they're leasing there in the house, and I mean, the guys do, they certainly are, it's a bachelor pad. I mean, that's what in a lot of ways, they had a nice article in the paper when they first moved in. They called it the bachelor pad, and but they've by and large they've been making pretty darn good decisions, and they've been, when they haven't made those decisions, there's been some natural consequences, some consequences that we've wanted to make sure that they don't do certain things again, but it's they've been learning together in a lot of ways, and learning independently, doing things that they're interested in, and being involved in work situations that they want to do, things that are feel like they're contributing in the community, and and most of them are going to day programs as well, and so they're active. They're really active, and doing some, I think, some fun things, and some really good things, contributing to the community.
Well, this is a hopeful and inspiring story. And so it's so great for you to be able to share that. And I guess at this point in time, we should turn and see if we have any questions coming in. I don't know if we have any in the chat that we didn't.
I know that the whole issue of the 78 guardianship is one of the questions that that was mentioned, Jerry mentioned, and it is something that we're at this point in time don't believe that we're going to drop that, only because, at least for the time being. Now, whether or not I would want Craig to go through this process, then then that's that would be something that we might consider for the future. But right now, I think he's making some good decisions for himself, and I don't know if he necessarily does need this particular process. The question then was also asked, I saw that, whether or not, if this is not legally binding, how does it presently work? What I would have to defer, Dwayne, to that question is to make contact with SDMNY, to see how they answer that, because they do come up with a contract. It is a contract that they do have signed off on at the end of the process, and and they believe, from what, when I asked that question on Thursday, they believe that it's going to be relatively soon that it's going to be recognized as a legal document. So it is something that is, they're looking to have it be an official legally binding alternative to 17A guardianship. That when they first started it back in 2016, that was really the vision that they wanted. Actually, a judge was involved in the very beginnings of this, as well as the different groups that were mentioned. But it is something that they're looking to do. And again, it's somewhat tied up in the legislature, as I understand it right now. And then it's going to have to be approved by the governor, and I don't know what are the kind of hoops they have to be made in order for it to be an official document. But that is something that is, at this point, as I understand it, it's in the process at this point.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Oh, Jerry put down recently they were asked to do a presentation to the courts in Nassau County so that the courts could get up on this process. I think that would be good, because I think the more people that know about this, I think the better. Because I don't know, for those that have gone through 17A guardianship, it's you have to go through. There's a real diligence that you have to go through in order to do it, and some people that are on, they have various kinds of disabilities. It's not easy for them to necessarily qualify for a 17A guardianship, and which can be a real challenge for some of the families, as well as some of the medical providers that they may be involved in it. So so this may be a good alternative to that.
Max, this is Jerry Clare. I was on a presentation by SDM New York that they did last year. And they in particular said that they were asked to come in by the circuit court in Nassau County on Long Island and to present to them on this process as an alternative 17A. So I looked at that as being good news, because if we eliminate the 17A for my 31-year-old son, we're going to have to go through those courts. Now, there was I have a document from the court in Westchester County, which is above New York City, about a young man who was in his early 30s who went to supportive decision-making and went through the court case. It's actually the transcript from the trial, where the court, because he was in supportive decision-making, granted the removal of the 17A.
Wow.
So I'm really looking at that as well. Do I go to the courts, and I got to contact the attorney that set it up. Do we go through the courts, remove the 17A? Because my son in the last 13 years is doing 20,000% better than what I could have imagined when he was 18.
Good for him.
And
Yes.
and he's doing all the things that Craig's doing with you. He's calling us up. We talk to him all the time. He has a magic hobby. He buys magic items that cost $100 with his Able account or with his checking. He's calling me up to discuss it. So we're doing all the right things, but I'm 72. I won't be here in 20 years. You will be, and maybe you'll be my son's guardian, because I know you got 8 more years than I do. But it's an interesting thing, and if I had an email address, I would send it to someone if they wanted to send it out.
Okay.
About this court case in Westchester County.
Okay. Well, you were on a call yesterday too, so together. So they do have my email address, so I can try to see if I can find yours, Jerry.
If you put it in Facebook, I can send it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
I know we're now friends.
We're now friends. I thought about it, but I thought, oh, he's an okay guy. You sounded okay when we talked last night.
I keep all my friends at 70. So because you got to be 71, it's a big deal for me.
Okay.
I don't want a lot of friends on Facebook, you know?
I know, me either. Right. Okay, well, good. Well, that's good. Well, thank you for
So
the,
you give me your email, I'll send it to you. You can send it to Maggie.
I
She can
will.
review it and see if it's something that should go out to this group.
Great, thank you.
Great,
Much
thank you so
appreciated.
much.
Okay, good. We're at 1 o'clock right now. Maggie?
Other questions or comments? I will just throw out that in June, we'll likely be doing a lunch and learn on the Olmsted decision and probably the art of advocacy. So we don't have a date set yet, but we will send it out and we'd love for you to join us again.
Great, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.